Alrighty, in this video we're going to put together some points. So what I want to do is I want to first of all work a little bit on our level manager so that we can add in some data that we can use to track how much time that the player has been playing since reaching the last checkpoint, and also so that the level manager can keep track of the point state. So what I mean by that is, let's say the player starts on level start and reaches this checkpoint and acquires 20 points between these two. Then the player goes from this checkpoint, he acquires 20 more points, but then he dies. Well, I kind of want those points to disappear. If he can't hold on to his points by the time he gets to the next checkpoint, I consider those points to be null and void. So our level manager is going to have to store the points that the player had up until getting to one of those checkpoints that he's currently at. The game manager is going to store the total amount of points that the game currently has, and then the game HUD is going to display the points and the time that the player has, as well as the projected point bonus for given the amount of time that the player has been playing the game. Okay, so what we want to do is over here on our game, I'm going to come into the level manager and I'm going to add some additional fields and properties to keep track of certain bits of information. First of all, up here in our private fields, I'm going to write a private date time started. Now, of course, this is going to require that we bring in a using statement for system up at the top. Then I want to say private int saved points. Then for my properties, I want to say public date time running time, which I'm going to say get return date time dot utc now minus started. Or sorry, not date time, time span, derp. Okay, so the time span is going to return now minus when we started this last checkpoint. Sound good? Okay.
It does indeed.
Sweet. So next up, I'm going to add some parameters. So these are going to be public fields that can be set inside of the Unity inspector. I'm going to add a public int bonus cutoff seconds. Then I'm going to add a public int bonus second multiplier. Multiplier. Okay, so what do these guys mean? Well, these are options that you can set on a per level basis. The bonus cutoff second says what is the maximum amount of time that a player can go while still receiving at least one bonus point for completing a checkpoint. So it might say like 10 seconds. So you have 10 seconds to get from checkpoint A to checkpoint B and to still receive a bonus. Anytime after that, and you won't receive a bonus. The bonus seconds multiplier indicates how many seconds left over multiplied by how many points should you receive as your bonus. Now that I have these two parameters set, I can create a current bonus property, which I'm going to do up here at the top. I'm going to say public int current time bonus, and it's going to have a getter, and the getter is going to be a little bit more complicated than our usual getters. I'm going to say second difference equals int, cast to int, and then in parentheses, bonus cutoff seconds minus running time dot total seconds. So the second difference retrieves us, for example, let's say the bonus cutoff time is 10 seconds and you're at 5 seconds. This will return you 5 in the second difference. So you would receive 5 times the bonus multiplier. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this off with a return statement. What we're going to be returning is mathf.max 0 second difference multiplied by bonus second multiplier. So that'll return us how many bonus points we should receive for completing that checkpoint. Okay, so that's all the data that we have to add to our level manager. What about functionality? So if we scroll down, we will see that in our start method, we should probably track where we started this particular checkpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say underscore started, which is the date time that indicates when we started the current checkpoint, equals datetime.utc now. So that's when we started the current checkpoint. And that's pretty much going to complete the start method in almost its entirety. There's still going to be one more thing we'll do with it later. Let's work on our update method. So our update method is going to have to do a couple things. When we hit a checkpoint, we have to say gamemanager.instance.addPoints, and then we'll say current time bonus. So we're adding the current time bonus to our game manager's points. Then we want to cache how many points we currently have in case the player dies. So we'll say gamemanager.instance.points for our saved points. Finally, we'll say started equals datetime.utc now, saying that we're starting the current time bonus at this particular time. Alrighty, so let's go down to the kill player co. After we've killed the player and waited 2 seconds, we need to say started equals datetime.utc now. Then we need to say gamemanager.instance. And in this case, I'm going to do something that will result in an error, but we'll fix that later. I'm going to say reset points to saved points. So we haven't actually implemented the reset points method of our game manager yet, but I'm just going to say gamemanager.instance.resetPoints. And this means is when our player dies and he respawns at a previous checkpoint location, we want to reset his points to whatever he had before. Sound good? Alrighty.
Yes, it does.
Sweet. So let's jump into our game manager and let's write our reset points method. So go into game manager, come into reset, come underneath our public void reset, and I'll say public void reset points to int points. You might be wondering why I have a reset points method and an add points method, which we will have to write an implementation for, and a reset method and a points property with a private setter. And the reason is I haven't quite yet decided if I want to add any additional logic when we do something like reset the game or reset the points or add points. So instead of opening up points by setting its setter to public, I'm writing specific methods for the different kinds of logical operations we would perform on points, so that in the future, if I wanted to perform some additional logic, I would be able to do so in here. Okay, now that we're in the game manager, that's a good place to just finish it. I probably should have honestly just written the game manager in its entirety when we stubbed it out, because pretty much the game manager for right now is going to be pretty straightforward. The reset method simply sets points to 0. The reset points of points method resets or sets points to the points parameter. The add points method simply sets points or says points plus equals points. Let's call this parameter points to add instead of just points. That'll differentiate it from the reset points method. Okay, so now we have our reset points, our add points, our reset, and our points. It's kind of funny when you read all the public members of this class.
All that and more.
Yeah. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and write our singleton pattern. Yeah, again, I don't know why I didn't write any implementation for the game manager earlier when we stubbed this class out, because pretty much it's really straightforward. It's going to need a private static game manager underscore instance field. Why? Remember, this is a singleton. We'll only ever have one of these objects instantiated, meaning that we want to store a static reference to the instance. Then on our getter, I'm going to say return instance null coalescing on parentheses instance equals new game manager. What does this code mean? This code means return the instance static field if it exists, if it's not null. If the instance is null, then set instance to a new instantiation of game manager. The final thing I want to do is a basic sanity check. I want to say private game manager. This might look a little weird to you guys. All this is it's a constructor, an empty constructor that doesn't take any parameters. So you might be thinking, well, that looks like a pretty worthless constructor you got there. It doesn't do anything. Well, it actually does. Because we've marked it with the private access modifier, this means that nobody other than the game manager can instance himself, or instance it. As you see, the only place that we actually perform an instantiation of the game manager is inside of the game manager class itself. By setting this constructor to private, that means that nobody else can instantiate it because they won't have the right accessibility to access this method. Okay, so we've done a whole lot of stuff with our level manager, and we've finally written our game manager that'll serve us for a good while here. The next thing I want to do is I wanted to jump into my game HUD. And that's because in order to actually test the stuff that we're doing and that we just did with points, we need some sort of place to show that, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, we need to show the player these points, otherwise, you know, what's the point? Yes, stuff and things. What's the point of having points if they don't see them? Okay, so our game HUD is going to be responsible for showing the player the amount of time that he's been running for, how many bonus points are projected for him, as well as how many points he currently has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say GUI.skin equals skin to set the GUI skin to this skin. Then I'm going to say GUI layout.begin area new rectangle 0, 0 screen width screen height. What does this do? This creates a GUI layout in the entire area of the screen. And of course, when we do a begin area, we have to do a GUI layout.end area. And then in addition, I'm going to use empty blocks to denote where we're opening up a GUI layer block or GUI layout block. This just makes the code a little bit clearer. In C#, when you have a block like this that is not preceded by something like an if or a switch or a while or a do, it just does nothing. Like, it's just additional syntacticalness that's virtually ignored. Its only purpose of doing this is for scoping things for whatever reason, if you want to add some additional lexical scopes into your file, or in this case, cleaning up our code a little bit by giving a nice logical connection between our begin area and our end area. Then I'm going to say GUI layout.begin vertical, and then I'm going to pass in a couple things, or one thing, in fact. I'm going to pass in skin.getStyle, let's say game HUD. Then I'm going to open up a block, and I'm going to match this with the GUI layout.end vertical. Inside of this block, I'm going to say GUI layout.label. String.format, passing in points, colon, placeholder. And then I'm going to pass in game manager as the parameter to that placeholder. I'm going to say game manager instance points. Then I'm going to say comma, skin.getStyle, points text. See, the cool thing about doing skin.getStyle is it'll allow us to add custom styles to our GUI to specific GUI elements in the game. Then I'm going to say var time equals level manager dot instance dot running time. Then I'm going to say GUI layout dot label string dot format, and I'm going to say placeholder of 0 colon 00 to specify that I want a number up to 2 decimal places. Then I want to say colon and another placeholder 1 colon 00 to do the same thing. And then I'll say equals 2 bonus. Or how about, like, let's say with 2 bonus. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say time.minutes plus time.hours times 60 colon, or not colon, comma, time.seconds, comma, and let's go ahead and format this so it'll fit all on the screen, and then I can talk about each one of these arguments that we're passing in sequence. So I'm going to pass in time minutes plus time hours times 60, time seconds, and then I'm going to pass in level manager instance.current bonus. After I pass in all of that, I'm going to pass in another parameter. And note that I'm passing in this additional argument after the string.format. I'm adding a comma, and then I'm going to say skin dot get style. We'll call this time text. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, we're adding a GUI layout label, and we're showing them the time.minutes plus time.hours times 60. Yeah. It's unlikely that they are going to be active for multiple hours in a single checkpoint, but if they are, this code will handle it. Then for the seconds, I'm just going to say time.seconds. So I'm going to say minutes : seconds. Then I'm going to say level manager.instance current time bonus, which will be placed in that 2 parameter right there. Then I'm going to pass in skin.getStyle time text for our GUI style. Okay, so let's jump back into Unity and see if our points work. I'm going to jump back here. I'm going to place the player, I'm going to drag him over here. It doesn't matter where I place him, but I kind of like him to be over there. It just kind of looks better. Doesn't really matter though. I'm going to click on my managers, and I'm going to locate my level manager component. And you notice we have bonus cutoff seconds and bonus second multiplier. Let's say the bonus cutoff seconds is 15. In this case, you'll have 15 seconds to get from one checkpoint to another. And then let's say the bonus second multiplier is 3. Now that we've done that, let's hit start and see what we see. First of all, we see our points 0, and we see a 5 seconds with 27 bonus. You see how the bonus is going down as the seconds is going up? So now let's come here, and if we hit that checkpoint, notice what happens. Oh, we died. Okay, so we say 39 bonus. Let's hit this checkpoint. Notice how we got those 33 points. Right? Okay, so let's test our, let's go ahead and restart the game real fast. And I want to test the saving of points. So if we get to this checkpoint, we should get 27 points. We get 27 points here. And then we get 57 points. And we should still have 57 points when we respawn. I actually think we won't be able to test our ability to save our old points and reset them when we die until we get some objects that will give us points during the execution of the game itself. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and work on our GUI style. We'll notice that we're getting a bunch of warnings. Unable to find style game HUD, unable to find style, well, game HUD, points text, and time text, and we get that error a bunch. In fact, every time the GUI redraws, we'll get that error. So as you see, as we're clicking, we still get that error. So let's go ahead and fix that. Remember that our game HUD, his skin parameter is this game skin. So how do we add custom styles to our game skin? Well, not surprisingly, we scroll all the way down to the bottom in our inspector and open up our custom styles. Currently, we have one custom style. Let's set the name of this one custom style to game HUD. And let's pretty much just keep it as it is. Actually, no, I want to set a, I want to come in here and I want to set a padding of 10 pixels by 10 pixels by 10 pixels by 10 pixels, meaning that our game HUD will be slightly indented on the in the different directions. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and add in another element, another custom style. How do we do that? We simply increase the size parameter. So now let's say 2 and hit enter. Now we have 2 game HUDs. Let's go ahead and write our points text first. So our points text will have a normal with a text color of white. So our normal text color of our points text will be white. Our hover will be, everything else will be pretty much how it is. Our margin will have a margin bottom of 10, which will push down the next element by 10 pixels. So that's what we want. Keep the font as none, because in that case it'll use the default Arial font. Set the font size to, I don't know, 15. Set the font style to normal, alignment upper left. We can tweak this a little bit more once we actually go in and get these styles actually working. So what I want to do is I just want to kind of create these styles first, and then I'll restart the game. And when I restart the game, it'll pick up on the new styles that I've created, and then we'll be able to tweak them in real time. So let's set the size of custom styles to 3 now and hit enter. And you'll notice now we have another points text, and let's rename that to time text. So now we have our 3 custom styles that we referenced inside of our code, our game HUD, our points text, and our time text. Let's go ahead and restart the game. So I'm going to stop the game and I'm going to start it. What we should see now is we don't see any warnings. Our text is white and we have a 10 pixel padding. In addition, we also have that margin bottom on our points text, which is what we want. So let's go into our points text and let's work on a little bit. Alignment upper left. Let's do middle center. No, let's do middle left. Middle left looks good. Rich text doesn't matter. I'm just going to disable it because we're not going to be using any rich text. Stretch width and stretch height are irrelevant. I don't want either of those. Now let's check our margin. We have a margin bottom of 10 pixels. Maybe that margin bottom of 10 pixels is a little bit too big. You'll notice that we do have already some padding going on that I don't really like. Notice how when I set the margin bottom to 0, we still have a significant amount of white space between points and the time. So let's look at why that is. The reason why that is the padding was inherent because we copied this style from our game HUD style. The padding was brought in with it. So let's set the padding of this to 0, 0, 0, 0. And then let's set the margin bottom back to 10. Because I do want there to be 10 pixels between the points display and the time display. Now that I've set that, let's collapse that and open up time text. And again, we'll have to set the padding to 0, 0, 0, 0. And now you'll see is that everything is correctly positioned. There's 10 pixels of padding between the background and the top left of point 0. And then there's 10 pixels between point 0 and our time bonus. Okay, so you can definitely play around with this as much as you want. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing this because, well, a whole lot of time at all even working on this because Unity is going to be coming out with a new GUI system very, very shortly, in a month or two, and it's really amazing and awesome, and it'll completely replace all this GUI stuff that we're doing right now. But again, we still have to write games with GUIs, so we're just going to use the GUI system, just the simplest implementation possible using the old system. Let's go ahead and just take a look at what we can do with Game HUD real fast, though. If we set the background image on Game HUD normal to, like, well, if we had other textures, we could have like a little bar up at the top of the file, or up at the top of the game, that would make the points, see, there we go, it looks kind of ugly, but it'll make it so that we can control the background, meaning that we won't have conflicting colors. But for now, I think this points display is perfectly fine for our purposes. So now you see we have a nice parallaxing effect, and our stuff does indeed work. Running at 15 milliseconds in our main thread, that's fine. But we see that we do indeed have a HUD, and the HUD displays our points, and the HUD displays our bonus, and our checkpoints work, and all that stuff is awesome.
Very cool, man.
Alrighty. So I think that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to do in this particular video, but that doesn't wrap up everything we need to do with points. So in the next video, we'll take a look at making little stars that will be able to place throughout the level that awards the player points while he goes through the level. And we'll take a look at some of the challenges involved with doing that sort of thing. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.